Hi everyone, welcome to official YouTube channel for the 3-year LLB programs of the National Law Training Institute. I am Manish Gupta, one of the founders of National Law Training Institute and currently in my final year at the National Law School Bangalore. This video is going to be very important. A lot of students reach out to us saying that GK involves everything under the sun, or that RC is something, that is reading comprehension, is something that bothers us a lot, or that we are unable to score good marks at all in critical reasoning section. तो बहुत सारे doubts होते हैं बच्चों के, and all these doubts we think personally feel can be addressed by watching this video. In this video, we are going to discuss the most important question types or question stems that are repeated every year across all 3-year LLB programs. Not just NLSAT, not just CUET, but other important exams like the NLUO exam, the Punjab University exam, and other various state law universities exam. So we will in this video discuss the most important 3-year LLB questions asked across exams. And these are the questions that consistently appear across all major exams, and candidates or students or aspirants who are preparing for exams, if they understand the question types or stems that are asked in the paper very frequently, they will score higher and they will be able to clearly or very easily clear cutoffs. And why you should watch this video? Because in this video, we are going to discuss the question types that have the highest historical frequency of being asked in these exams. We will give you a complete breakdown of the past year papers. It will be a data-backed session, and we will also suggest preparation strategies or sources that you need to cover to holistically prepare for the most expected questions or the most frequently asked questions for the 3-year examinations. Watching this video will give you an idea of how to prioritize your preparation on high frequency and high density areas, so you have the highest output in the least amount of time. So we will start with NLSAT, that is the National Law School Admission Test. This is one of the most important, or I'd rather say this is the most important 3-year LLB exam out there, because it gives you gateway into the most prestigious or India's best university for law, that is the National Law School Bangalore. So NLSAT was started in I think 2023. For the last 3 to 4 years, we have been producing the best results in NLSAT. So we know this exam inside out, and the advice that we are giving you today is not at all generic, but based on our experience and our analysis of the paper for the last 3 to 4 years. So what does NLSAT evaluate? It evaluates you on your reading comprehension. So reading comprehension primarily involves two things: your ability to read in a speedy manner and your ability to comprehend what you are reading. So just reading it in a quick fashion is not sufficient unless you actually understand what you are reading. So you have to properly read every passage in a speedy fashion, but also understand what the author is trying to say. Then comes critical reasoning. Again, this section challenges you to think logically, critically, to properly understand and break down the author's argument. We will discuss the question types that are frequently seen in this section. Then it also tests you on current affairs, not just national news, not just international news, but a very interdisciplinary approach is what NLSAT follows. It will ask you questions on sports, it will ask you questions on national events, international events, and one important and peculiar thing to NLSAT is that it also asks questions on pop culture. The exam is given by Generation Z, what we call Gen Z. So the exam setter also understands our way of responding to a paper. So the current affairs also cover the genre of pop culture, in which questions like famous personalities, famous books, famous launches, or famous new upcoming projects are also asked in the paper. Then for part B, it evaluates your analytical essay writing, how well you can present your arguments in a coherent manner, how well you can think logically and think creatively, put down your arguments, how well you can structure your answers. So all of this is tested in part B. Then a little bit of legal reasoning is also tested as part of your part B, in which you will be given a fact situation and you will have to decide primarily as a judge or one of the plaintiffs or one of the defendants on how you will argue your side of the case. There's no prior legal knowledge or degree required, at least this is what NLSAT prescribes, but some bit of awareness of legal jargon is recommended so that you can put complex sentences using one word. For example, promissory estoppel, defamation, sedition, due diligence, all of these things, if you know at least something about them, it is recommended and appreciated. And the syllabus for NLSAT overlaps with CUET PG to an extent, and also with the NLUO exam that is called the NIET. So the syllabus is somewhat similar in terms of English, GK. Other subjects are very unique and peculiar to NLSAT. Now coming to CUET PG, it tests you on general knowledge, very important. Then it also tests you on English language, not just comprehension, but also the other part of English language, that is grammar, punctuations, grammar including punctuation, conjunction, parajumbles, etc. Then it also tests you on your logical reasoning, critical reasoning, some bits of legal reasoning, legal awareness, quantitative aptitude, and there's one more topic that is not mentioned here, is that basics of computer. So very easy questions like what is the shortcut for, let's say, copy paste, what is motherboard otherwise known as, what is the heart of the computer. All of these very basic questions related to computers are also asked, and it is one of the most stable and consistent exams. So there are no major hiccup or major surprises that CUET throws your way. This exam has been one of the most consistent and stable across all other 3-year LLB exams. So if you focus on the most frequently asked questions, or if you go through the past year question papers very diligently before your exam, you will have a great idea, or you have a solid idea of what the CUET PG 2026 exam will be asking you. So properly go through the PYQs, because the exam has been relatively stable and the questions also repeat every year. Now the NLU exam, it is also an MCQ based paper, but it is testing you heavily on your grammar. It is testing you heavily on your static GK. Unlike NLSAT tests you primarily on your contemporary knowledge or current affairs, but NLU exam last year was primarily had a lot of static GK questions. It also tests you on your analytical reasoning, and one important thing is it also tests you on your basic legal awareness, like some basic legal jargon, some basic legal issues that have been coming up, or very basic legal general knowledge. There's no negative marking, so it is suggested that you attempt every question. NLSAT on the other hand, there's negative marking even if you don't attempt the question, so even in there it's suggested that you attempt every question. PU LLB, so Punjab University law degree, is also a very reputed one. Before NLSAT came in, Delhi University, that is the CUET PG, and Punjab University were consistently ranked as one of the best universities or colleges for pursuing your 3-year LLB. So that is why we are discussing the Punjab University law entrance exam also here. This exam focuses on static GK and current affairs, very important, forms major chunk of the paper, some bit of basic quantitative techniques involving quick calculations, and again a very grammar and vocabulary heavy English language section. So the idea is that if you prepare for either CUET or NLSAT, or I'd rather say if you prepare for both NLSAT and CUET together, then all these exams become very easy for you, because your comprehension bit is prepared via preparing for NLSAT, and your other aspects of English language like grammar, tones, tenses, etc. are prepared while preparing for CUET PG. So keep your options limited to NLSAT and CUET PG while you are preparing, and all these exams will fall automatically in the basket of the exams that you are preparing for. And PU LLB is a combination of speed and memory. It's a very memory heavy exam, unlike NLSAT, and NLSAT is testing you on your reading skills or your writing skills or your comprehension abilities, but this is a very rote learning based exam testing you on your memory. Now another important exam that we are covering is the TS law set, that is the exams for entry into 3-year LLB programs of Telangana state. Now this exam focuses on your legal aptitude. People who appeared for CLAT and ALET earlier and were not able to get in and now are targeting this exam, you would know the type of legal questions that were asked earlier in CLAT and ALET. Similar questions are asked in this exam. It is also very GK heavy and also tests some bit of your mental ability, which is already covered in the logical reasoning section of other exams. Directions, blood relations, syllogisms, these types of questions are asked in the mental ability section. This has around 120 questions, and also this exam also prioritizes accuracy and completion. So attempt every question, go for an all-in approach, because if you are preparing for other exams, this exam becomes very easy for you. Now we have covered the exams, but the highlight of this video is that we are going to tell you the most expected types of questions, or the most expected or most frequently asked question stems in all these exams. The first question type that has seen across exam and is the most repeated is RC, that is the reading comprehension. It is based on long form journalism from The Hindu and Indian Express. This basically means that you get passages from good sources or credible sources like The Hindu, The Indian Express, or magazines like The Caravan, The Frontline, The New Yorker, and based on these passages, what is being tested are your skills involving inference, that you are able to understand or you are able to take away something from the passage. You are able to identify author's argument including his assumptions. You are able to contextualize the vocabulary, that is, if an important word or a difficult word is given to you, you are able to make sense of its meaning via the context in which the word has been written. So for ACE, the RC section, what you have to do is you have to develop a structured 45-minute daily reading routine. You have to make it a point to read The Hindu daily, and you have to make it a point, if that you're not reading The Hindu, at least read one other important newspaper like the Indian Express. So if you're reading the Hindu and you're able to properly comprehend and speed read all the editorials or other important articles, then you are sorted for this section of RC, because you're able to understand the author's argument, you're able to take away something from the argument that forms the inference, you're able to see what the conclusion of the author is, and you're able to also figure out that these are the few things that the author has assumed while writing this paper. Now, coming to the second question, right, that is critical reasoning. So the critical reasoning section tests you heavily on your ability to strengthen and weaken arguments. There will be a sentence given to you, and then the question stem will be which of the following sentences, if true, would strengthen the argument given above or weaken the argument given above. So for that, it becomes very important to follow a process. That is, you have to first understand the argument made by the author, because if you are not able to understand that what the argument was made by the author in the first place, then you will not be able to strengthen or weaken it. So if you see this type of question, पहले आपको author का argument understand करने, and then you have to go about checking all of the answer options to see whether it is strengthening the author's argument, weakening the author's argument, or is completely unaffected by it. Secondly, identify assumption forms part of RC and CR both. You have to identify what are the few things that the author has taken for granted and has assumed in his paper or the passage. Then you have to see other question type is inference. Which of the following is the inference of the passage? So inference is different from conclusion. So you have to be aware of what the difference is between conclusion and inference to answer this question. Then there are questions on parallel reasoning, and there's questions on assertion and reasoning. So these are the 5 most asked questions in the CR section of various exams. For this, what you have to do is the hack to a CR section is to solve at least 15 CR questions daily. And how can you do this? You have to rely on sectional tests, either by NLTI or either on your own. You have to find sectional tests and appear for at least 15 critical reasoning questions every day. Yeah, and one more important thing that I missed out on. So CR, the critical reasoning section, is seen in the exams of NLSAT and CUET PG. So if you are able to crack this section, then you are able to score good in both the exams of NLSAT and CUET PG. The CR section again is seen in these 2 important exams of NLSAT and CUET PG LLB. So becomes very important. Now comes another important topic or frequently asked question, that is on grammar. So this section tests you heavily on your ability to understand tenses, prepositions, parajumbles, idioms and phrases, and commonly confused spellings. On the face of it, it seems very simple, something that we have done in our class, in our standards 1 to 3rd or 1 to 5th, but forms a very important part of the exams like the NLU exam, CUET PG exam, and the PU LLB exams, because these exams are still heavily dependent on your ability to read English language properly. That is why they test you on your grammar also, which in my personal opinion is quite redundant, but it is what it is. So you have to be aware of all the rules, of all the important aspects of the frequently asked questions in grammar, and these are the most frequently asked questions. Go through it, solve a particular book, and for this, what you have to do is you have to rely on a curated list of essential grammar. We teach grammar and we cover grammar in our courses, so it becomes important for you to at least pay some attention to the grammar bit while preparing for your exams of NLUO, CUET PG LLB, and the Punjab University exam. Now, very important question on static GK, not asked in NLSAT primarily, but asked in other exams like the NLUO exam, CUET PG, PU LLB, and the Telangana State Law entrance exams. And the most important topics that are asked under static GK are your basics of constitution. For example, when was the constitution signed, or when was the constitution enforced? 2 very important things, but important. When is our constitution day celebrated? Who's the drafter of constitution? Who is the person who wrote the constitution? So these are the constitutional basics. Again, one question stem that I can think of is what are the several aspects of our constitution that has been borrowed from other jurisdictions, like the DPSP have been borrowed from one jurisdiction, the fundamental rights have been followed from another jurisdiction. So becomes important to know all of this. Then questions on history and geography are also seen. Some questions on polity related to president, vice president, governor. Books and authors, very important. For example, reputed authors like Arundhati Roy. Questions are frequently seen on these questions, Rabindranath Tagore, etc. And another important aspect, international organizations like World Health Organization, the United Nations, the World Trade Organization. All of these questions, all of these organizations are very important for your preparation of static GK for these exams. So make sure you go through international organizations also. And for this, you can primarily rely on NCERT, and other important books can be Lucent GK or Arihan GK. So that should be enough for your static GK bit. Now coming to analytical reasoning, not tested by every exam, but tested by NLUO, sometimes CUET PG, PU LLB, and Telangana law exams. And the questions that are most frequently seen under analytical reasoning are blood relation, analogy based, series identification, directions, classification, syllogism, these are the most important. Puzzles, sometimes puzzles are also asked. Clocks and calendar, rarely but possible. So these are the few aspects or topics that are to be covered in analytical reasoning. For this, you can go through any YouTube channel. They teach very concisely and give you shortcuts to cover all of these things. But make sure that you know how to solve questions for at least these 5 topics while you are preparing for analytical reasoning. Daily practice is a must, because if you don't practice daily for your analytical reasoning, after a point of time, let's say after 7 to 10 days, you'll forget the rule or the shortcut trick that you learned to solve blood relation questions or syllogism questions or directions questions. Now, since it's a law exam, you have to know the law at least, and then that is why this question stem or this section on legal aptitude becomes very important. And what does this section test? So this section is not asked in all the papers. NLSAT primarily asks you to not have any prior legal knowledge. So this section is important for NLUO exam, the PU LLB exam, and the Telangana State Law University exams. So if you're preparing for these 3 exams, you have to know at least these 3 to 4 topics for the legal aptitude section. And these are legal maxims. You have to know what is mens rea, actus reus, some other important jargon, legal maxims. You have to know some contract law basics. For example, what are the essentials of a contract? What is an offer? What is an acceptance? What is consideration? You have to know constitutional structure. What sort of constitution do we have? The federal system, some questions on polity involving president, vice president, the amendment powers. These are the questions that can be asked under constitution. And matching and comprehension based legal questions. Sometimes, for example, you will be given a section or an article. For example, Article 14 corresponds to equality before law. Article 19 corresponds to freedom of speech or an expression. Article 25 corresponds to freedom to possess religion. So all of these questions can be given to you in a matching form in which you have to match which article corresponds to which fundamental right. And for this, important bit of preparation is to revise legal maxims and constitution articles. Again, can be done by YouTube videos, or you can rely on the NLTI's sources. Now, what does this data show? So analysis of the past year papers across all exams tell us that around 40 to 60% of question times repeat every year. ऐसा नहीं है कि हर साल क्वेश्चन सेटर बहुत ही डिफरेंट टाइप्स के क्वेश्चंस डाल रहा है. द क्वेश्चन स्टेप्स और द क्वेश्चन टाइप्स रिमेन वेरी सिमिलर, बस डेटा चेंज होता रहता है. मैथ्स का कॉन्सेप्ट सेम रहेगा, परसेंटेज पे आएगा, रेशियो प्रोपोर्शन पर आएगा, बस जस्ट दैट डेटा चेंजेस. एंड द सेम इज बीइंग हैपनिंग अक्रॉस ऑल 3 LLB एग्जाम्स, दैट एवरी ईयर you will see 40 to 60% of question type are repeated every year. अगर last year inference conclusion assumption पर question आया था, there is a very high chance that this year also you will see a question on assumption, inference, conclusion. Last year there was a question on blood relation or directions. This year also you will see a question of blood relation and or direction or syllogism. So every year 40 to 60% of the questions are repeated, not verbatim, but similar questions are asked in all the exams. Question type bucket preparation is equal to 22 to 40% growth. So you have to increase the bucket or the questions that you are practicing every year from the most frequently asked questions, and the top 1% are the people who practice at least good number of questions. So 3000 I think is an overstatement. 3000 questions might not be possible right now, given that you only have 3 months left for mostly all of these exams. But top 1% candidates who clear all these exams or clear all the cutoffs are the ones who have practiced extensively, who have not just gone through the theories but have put all the theories into practice by giving mock tests, by giving sectional tests, and by giving or by solving extensive practice sheets. So you have to build your study plan around high probability topics, because if not, then you are directing your energy and time into uncharted territories which are not even important. So if you have less time, since only 3 months are left, then it is recommended and it is advised that you focus on these frequently asked question stems and types that we have covered in this video. So what is the conclusion today? We have discussed the types of questions that are asked across the LLB exams, and for aspirants who want structured guidance, what you have to do is you have to appear for full length mocks, you have to solve exam specific question banks, you have to attend strategy sessions, and you need to have a proper strategy before you enter the exam hall on the D-day. You have to give sectional tests, and you have to rely on data trends, on data backed exam trends, and not simply guesswork. And where will you find all of this? You guessed it right. You can join NLTI's 3-year LLB comprehensive program in which we cover all these exams. One important exam that is not mentioned here is the MHCET exam, which is also very important and provides a great avenue of completing your 3-year LLB, especially if you're targeting corporate law. Being in Mumbai for 3 years, you get a lot of options to intern at tier 1 law firms while you are completing your degree. So MHCET is also another lucrative option, and we do provide coaching for that in our 3-year LLB program. So that is all from this session. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope you found this useful. We will keep coming up with more such videos to help you in your 3-year LLB preparation. Thank you so much.